to the Shades of Entrepreneurship, where we interview entrepreneurs to inspire the future entrepreneur. I'll be your host, Mr. Gabriel Flores. So grab a drink, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. My next guest is the CEO of the Silent Disco Company Group, known for groundbreaking event services in the UK and Europe. With a dedication to exceptional experiences, he crafts engaging events with cutting-edge technology. Please welcome the founder of the Silent Disco Company, Toby Burns.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Shades of Entrepreneurship. This is your host, Mr. Gabriel Flores. Today, I'm here with Toby Burns from DJ to CEO. But before we get into all that, Toby, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm very good. Thanks for having me. Excited to have a little chit chat today.
Having a little chit chat. So you got a bit of an accent, Toby. So before we get into the career move, could you please introduce yourself, share a little bit about your education, background, career journey, give us some of your personal experience and how you got on the entrepreneurial path?
So it's great. How long have we got?
Yeah, we're opening it up right from the get.
So yeah, I mean, I'm from a little seaside town in Essex in the United Kingdom, and yeah, love living by the sea. I'm a sea baby, and through my career and even growing up, I always wanted to be making money, entrepreneur. And I had a really tough time at school. And I've talked about this before, like, quite badly bullied, moved a lot of schools over a period of time. And then I found somewhere where I settled. And it was more the mindset of like, I want to prove these bullies wrong. And I'm going to really do something quite special. So from a very young age, before the DJ, I was a children's entertainer. Some people call that clown. I don't like to use that term, but a children's entertainer. So at 15 years old, I had a man in a van pick me up from school, pick me up from college at 3:00. Everyone's going out playing football. I was straight to a party, and I was entertaining children, entertaining teenagers, school discos, children's entertainment. And it got to a point where I was doing sort of like 10 kids parties a week.
Oh, wow.
And children's parties, people spend a lot on a party. I'm just going through it at the moment with my own daughter, so I know people spend a lot of money on parties. But I was doing about 10 a week, so 6 over a weekend, 4 during the week. And I thought there was one point where I broke my wrist, and I was like, it's a profitable job. If you're not going out, you're not earning money. So I quickly transitioned into DJing, and the sort of DJing I did was Jewish, Arab, and corporate events. That was my market. So I wasn't doing 18th or 21st. It was very specific: bar bat mitzvahs, Arabic sort of weddings, and corporate. So for the likes of Google, and we still do Google today. I still DJ for them 3 times a year. Virgin Airways, British Airways, so big corporate companies. And I was in the US at the time, so I don't know where you are based exactly. Where are you based?
Beautiful Portland, Oregon.
Ah, beautiful. Okay.
Beautiful, right above California.
Yeah. So I was in the US and I saw this silent disco, and I was standing there and I was like, what the hell is this? This is crazy. And I just thought, 1, I could do it better. 2, we can use better headphones that look better, that are more premium. And I knew that the market that I was DJing with would love it. So we bought 200 headphones. My parents thought I was mad. I'd saved up through children's entertaining. We developed this headphone in the Far East, brought in 200. And then, yeah, within a week, 2 weeks, they were fully booked for the next 3 months. So we went again, we bought more, and just reinvested constantly to today, where we now stand at over 15,000 headphones in the UK. We have, we opened up in Dubai in 2023. So we have a certain amount out there as well. And now we have a big team, and I'm involved in a few other businesses, property, and we've really used the profits of the business to build moats around our business and give us security that, God forbid another COVID happens, we have security around us that will make sure that we more than survive those tough times. So that's a little 10-year, 15-year period in a few minutes.
In a few minutes, in a little nutshell there. Now for
There
the folks that may be unaware of what the silent. So again, you mentioned you're the founder and CEO of the Silent Disco Company. Explain what that is. What does a silent disco do?
A silent disco, and it's really funny you say that, because after 10 years of doing this, I still go to events and people go, I've never seen this before, which is mind-boggling for me. But a silent disco is a bit like what we're doing now. Everyone has a pair of headphones. There's no fancy wires. They're all wireless. And on the headphone, there's a little switch. And you can have multiple channels of music that everyone can listen to. So people can choose what they want to listen to. Let's say you have 3 DJs. One DJ, not everyone wants to listen to what the DJ is playing. So the guests can choose what they want to listen to. And that just gives a whole different feel of entertainment. So that's what we do. And we do dry hire, which is where you're having a house party. You can plug in 3 phones and have 3 channels of music, your oldies music, your kids music, and rock and roll in the middle. And people can choose what they want to listen to. So we do that. We provide event packages, so with DJs and lighting. So we do a turnkey solution there. And then over the years, with the brand, we have lots of sub brands. So the cinema hire company, we do the big drive-in cinemas, outdoor cinemas. We do that as a dry hire, so people can do that in their garden, or you can have a big screen for a drive-in cinema. It's really popular in the US as well. And then we most recently the karaoke hire company. So the same concept. Our model is, majority, it goes in a box, it turns up at your front door. You have an amazing weekend having a silent disco with your friends, and then it gets collected on a Monday. So that's the model, and everything that we try and do with cinema, karaoke, it all fits into that model. It goes in a box, we ship it to you, we ship it back, you have an amazing time, and it's super easy. And this is the thing we tell everyone, is it complicated? This is super, super easy. Even your nan can set it up. You plug in 2 things and away you go. You got a silent disco.
It's such an interesting concept, because I think folks, I believe, if you live in the United States, you probably have seen this before, individuals with their headphones on, dancing in the club. However, I must admit, I never knew you can change through different music genres. If you didn't like something different, you can just listen to something else.
Yeah. And it's super easy. Switch on the headphone. So we do up to 8 channels now on the headphone. And we do that for a lot of corporate events. Like if you've got multiple areas and you want to listen to that keynote or that keynote, you can switch on the headphone between 8 different keynotes that are going on. But the normal party, you plug in 3 phones, 3 laptops. It's as simple as that. And you choose as the user what you want to listen to.
Now let's take a step back, because you mentioned, you're starting out as being a children's entertainer, right? A children's entertainer. And you did that for some years, and then you pivoted into the DJ, and then you pivoted into the silent disco. But let's talk about the first pivot into the DJ area. Why? Let's talk about that kind of transition. Why did you kind of begin? I know you mentioned you had an injury that kind of forced you into that, but why DJ?
I think it's a natural progression. I think a lot of children's entertainers, for example, at a weekend, I would do an 11 a.m. till 1 p.m. party, 5, 6, 7-year-olds party. Then I'd do a 3 till 5 p.m. and do another children's party. And then in the evening, children are going to sleep. So I would then go out and do at that time, a bar mitzvah or an 18th birthday. But I was in a very specific market where they spent a hell of a lot, not with us, but the overall production. They might spend $100,000 on a Sweet 16 party, and they're sort of the ones that I used to do. So it was a natural progression to sort of fill those evenings when children's parties were, it's too late. And I loved DJing, just entertaining the crowd. A lot, a lot of DJs will do kids and adults and that sort of thing.
So you're DJing, and then you transition right, and as you mentioned, to this silent discoing. Let's talk about building the brand. Could you walk us through the strategies and efforts that you employ to build and establish the brand identity? How do you build a brand with purpose and the power of customer centricity?
The brand is super important. I mean, like, I had a personal brand at that time as a children's entertainer. People knew my name. And they'd remember it was a catchy name. So the brand was super important. And for me, brands need to say what they do on the tin, and keep it simple. So the silent disco company, the cinema hire company, the karaoke hire company, they all say what we do on the tin. So, I mean, the brand built up really naturally as the leader in the UK. Sort of, we were first to market. There were a few others doing it on a smaller scale, but we went really, really heavy on branding. My brother, at the time, was marketing director for a big online gambling company. So he had a lot of insight into marketing. He worked with us even to this day, and he really, Google was our best friend, and even today we spend tens of thousands of pounds on Google ads to build up that brand. But for me, brand is all about customer service, recommendation, reviews. And we work so hard. And that's my main focus: is you get good reviews, you get recommendations, pictures or videos people send in. And very quickly, people know you are the expert in the field. And we say this about all the businesses. Like, now there's 30 people in the UK all doing silent disco, but we present ourselves as the experts. We're not going to compete on price. We are this price because we know we have the team here. We're not working out of a garage at home or something. We have a large commercial building, a big team that whenever you want to speak to us, we're there. And I think that helps build a really amazing brand and a trusted brand for consumers.
I think you brought up a great point. Like, consistency is so important when creating a brand guideline. I just got off a call before this one talking about a brand guideline and creating consistency around it and the importance of it. Because when you start to go into different communities and your brand isn't consistent across all markets, the consumer is going to take note of that. And if you're inconsistent with your brand, then they're going to generally assume that you are also inconsistent with your service, your quality, your value, right? So consistency with your brand is very important because, it allows you, like Toby, in fact, this is the next conversation I want to get into. Branding allowed you to go from like the house parties to corporate events. So where did you find, when now you have your brand, you're starting to build your brand, you mentioned Google. Where else did you go to find clients, in particular to break into the industrial event kind of space?
So how we really launched it, as I alluded to early on, is I was dealing with these high-end clients. And the whole reason I thought of bringing it is because you have an hour for dinner in a wedding, right? People eat for an hour, but the kids, they eat in 10, 15 minutes. And then for the other 45 minutes, they're causing havoc because they're bored. They're bored. So the whole reason, really, the core reason why I brought it into especially the Jewish market, is because the kids would eat in 10 minutes. And this was a perfect way to entertain them while the adults can carry on eating. There's no noise. They've got headphones on, the kids, and they can dance and have a great time. But like children's entertaining, it's a snowball effect. And I say this, as I said, recommendation, reviews. So we would do a party, you've got 50 guests there. Okay, you've got 50 people using headphones. Out of that party, we need 4 other people to book us. Then out of those 4, another 4. Now you've got 16 bookings, and it's a snowball effect. And COVID, sort of stopped that snowball, and you've had to start that snowball again. But certainly it's snowballed and snowballed. Google Ads, as I said, I'm a huge fan of Google Ads, giving our money to them. But if there's a good return on investment, and it's not always a good return on investment, and we talk a lot about average lifetime value of a customer. And some people have one wedding and they never use you again, like a DJ is rubbish. Average lifetime value of a customer, because they should really only be getting married once. You never know, but it should be once. Where a silent disco, okay, they might be having a house party, they might be having a birthday, and everyone has a birthday every single year. And people love to party, especially in the UK. I don't know if we have a bad reputation, but Brits love a party. We are a party nation, I would say. Any excuse that, we get a bit of nice weather here and people throw a party.
Love it. Going to UK.
Yeah. And it's not very nice weather very often. So you have a bit of nice weather, right? We're going to throw a party. So yeah, coming back to your point, I think it snowballed. And if you keep the consistency of great reviews, great customer service, and our operations manager now is so heavily focused on customer service, like it frustrates me sometimes. He's like, we're going to do this. And I was like, if that's what gets it over the line, if that's what keeps the customer happy and coming back every year, their grandma's 90th, and we have that, like we have 90th birthdays where they're hiring silent disco. So it's such a vast age group of from 5 years old to 90 years old. People enjoy it. And I just think, as you said, consistency. If you're consistent with all of those elements, one, you will help build a fantastic brand, and you have customer loyalty. And I use like Apple as an example. You go in, you can book an appointment. When you buy a new MacBook, you get a free training session for 30 minutes. Like, they're consistent in terms of their customer service. And that helps create amazing brands.
Yeah. I think you brought up a great point when you're thinking about the lifetime value of a customer, and understanding that. It's a funny story. I was at a wedding or at a quinceañera. And, to your point, DJs and photographers, they tend to have a limited lifetime value of their customer because, they're going to have one wedding, like you mentioned. But the funniest thing happened. My buddy's wedding photographer is there 15 years later taking photos of his daughter's quinceañera. And he's like, hey, I remember you guys. And I was like, what? This is the craziest thing I've ever seen. I have never in my life, 15 years later. But, it is interesting because to that point, creating good customer service allowed that individual to come back and service them 15 years later, right? Having a remarkable moment with either a sales or a company or anybody like Apple, right? Nike is a big thing over here in the Pacific Northwest, right? They make people feel like an athlete. That's been their kind of, slogan for some time. And it's true, individuals, they feel that, I always talk about building a brand. It's not just about the brand, but it's about what you feel like wearing that brand. How does the brand make you feel, right? What are your kind of your own personal beliefs, and how does the brand align with those personal beliefs? And people really, truly do look at that.
Yeah, I mean, look, our vision has always been making memories through celebrations. And I tell our team this all the time that, any party leaves a memory with somebody. So we're all about creating, making memories through celebrations. And a celebration can be a number of things. And, you touched upon the photographer 15 years later. And it's funny because I don't DJ that much anymore. I'm quite selective. You know, we run a lot of businesses, property now. So my time is stretched, but I still do maybe 1 or 2 a month because I enjoy it. And it keeps it fresh. And I had a call about a month ago from a client, and she said, "Oh, it's Jessica," and I was like, "You know, I speak to so many people," and she went, "You did my daughter's 5th birthday.
Oh, wow.
She's getting married next year. Can you DJ?"
Oh,
And
wow.
I was like, what? I was like, one, that makes me feel so old, because I was like, crazy, no way. And two, I was like, okay, maybe, you know, let's have a conversation. Let's get on a call and see how we can create a party. So your story is exactly the same. That I'm like, how old is she? She's like 21. I was like, that's young to get married. She was like, oh, they're childhood sweethearts. And I was like, that makes me feel old, because that must have been, you know, right at the start, like, you know, right at the start. But she remembered me, and she, you know, she follows me on social media. She sees the work we do. So that's a really interesting story, like you mentioned, that people do come back, and there is an average lifetime value. And I think what's super important about you know, a DJ, and I tell this to other entrepreneurs, like I'm doing a lot more keynotes, and I'm really passionate about young entrepreneurs, especially schools, universities, where they don't really know what they want to do. They may have gone through a tough time. And I like speaking at those sort of events because it gives a kid, you know, something to work towards. And I always say, like, DJing is a profitable job. If you're not DJing, you're not earning money. And it's really important that when I needed something that would work without me in it, you know, a commercially profitable company that doesn't need me in it to work. And that's all down to the team. And if you have a great management team, it's getting it ready to sell. And so another entrepreneur always told me, like, build a company to sell, even if you have no intention of selling it, because that discipline makes you build something so much more valuable that if in 5-10 years time I want to exit, it's ready to go with a management team, and it makes it so much more valuable to a buyer rather than a one-man band. Because if you're buying that business, you know, you've basically got a profitable job rather than a profitable company.
I completely agree. And folks, this is why I think operations is so important. Starting with your operational kind of plan is so important, because if you're just the person, and you're just coming in getting you know, they're not buying you, the employee. They're buying the operations and the profit revenue cycles. They're buying the company, you know, and ensuring those things are really tight is very, very important. Now, you know, entrepreneurship comes with its fair share of challenges. Could you share some of your significant hurdles you've encountered, and when starting out your own business, and then how did you overcome those hurdles?
Yeah, look, entrepreneurship is tough. A lot of people, builders, you know, they work for a building company, and then they're like, oh, I'm going to go do this on my own. And then you realize how tough it is. And I tell my team, like, when I get home, it's not a 9 till 5 for me, and you get home and you switch off. As an entrepreneur, it's 24/7. And even my wife, I say to her, like, imagine your internet, and you're on Chrome or Safari, and it feels like, for me, you've got 100 tabs open, and you're switching between all these different tabs, trying to get stuff done. And I think entrepreneurship is really, really tough. It's nonstop. It's very lonely. There's no instruction manual of how to run a business. Like, you have to work it out. And someone that I watch a lot, Stephen Bartlett, he's like, the best way of learning is failing. If you fail, you learn from what you fail at, and you get better. And it is, you know, amazing in terms of an entrepreneur in that respect. In terms of challenges, I think that the toughest challenge, and I speak to a lot of business owners like yourself, and I always ask, what's the biggest challenge? And every single one says staff. staff or the team, just when you think you've got the perfect team, you know, someone wants to go traveling and you've got to recruit again. And in the UK right now, recruiting is really, really hard, especially since COVID. They want hybrid, or they only want to work 3 days a week. And it's like, I'm very much a business owner that believes in like a team in an office. Like, you bounce off people, you're creative together. And I also tell my team I could work from home every day. I have quite a long journey into work. I don't have to come in, but I love coming in 5 days a week. I hear ideas that they're saying, and it's just a really amazing culture. So the biggest challenge I'd say is staff. You know, you get staff that leave and try and start on their own and take clients, and it's really difficult as a entrepreneur where you've built something up and then someone tries to take that away. But that's where the brand comes in. If the brand's really strong, people trust you. And the other challenge was probably COVID. Like many business owners talked about the snowball effect, and that sort of stopped. And it was going from like one of our best years we're about to hit. And then COVID struck, and literally for 2 weeks straight, bang, 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 call after call, cancel, or postponed. And I would say that summer of COVID, we lost probably £500,000 in postponed bookings. So then it's like, right, for, you know, here the government stepped in and paid some of the wages, but we didn't know that at the time. So you're thinking as a business owner, you know, I want to protect my team because they're amazing, but we also have to protect the life of the company. So as entrepreneurs do, you pivot. We started a few other businesses. We did some like home packages where it was like 6 headphones for your family, like have a silent disco over the weekend, make yourself feel better, at bargain prices, or a home cinema. So we pivoted in different areas. We opened a few other businesses just to bring cash flow in. And I tell other business owners, like, cash flow is the most important thing. I say sales first, operations after. Like, too many companies, they want the nice flashy office, they want a big warehouse, they want 10 people in their team, but they've got no sales yet. So I always say get sales, and that makes everything easier. If you've got the sales in and you need a new member of staff, you've got the money to invest in that new, and you can get a really good member of staff. So I'm a firm believer in like sales first, operations after. It makes things so much easier. But I'd say they're the significant challenges for me, even now, is recruitment and staff and finding talented people. And, you know, the struggles of COVID, which I think for everyone has added a few more years and a few more gray hairs to entrepreneurs' heads.
Yeah, you know, I got to tell you, the water cooler conversations that I'm deprived of from going into the office, they set in quite a bit during the pandemic. And I got to admit, folks, this is why I created this podcast, to be able to introduce, you know, and meet with Toby and folks like him to kind of, one, learn, and two, to meet with people, to get ideas, to bounce ideas off of each other. You know, like Toby said, I'm sure folks that if you listen to this long enough, you've heard me say this. I've never failed a day in my life. I either succeed or I learn, right? And the reason I say that is because the way I look at failure is I've stopped doing it. No, I'm going to fail in that task, certain, but I'm actually learned something through that failure that's going to continue to propel me forward, that actually makes me better. So I am not an actual failure. Sir, I failed at that task, but I'm not going to be a failure in life, because I'm going to continue to learn and I'm going to continue to get better. And that's just going to continue to propel me as a business leader, as an entrepreneur, to be better as for my clients, you know?
Yeah. And it's not for me just being good for your clients. I like it takes time to learn the skill. Like, you know, I have a warehouse team that if they pack an order wrong, or they miss something out, you know, many years ago, you take it really personally. I'm like, oh, that's cost me £300 as a refund. But now I'm like, that's the best £300 training I would have spent, because now they've learned from it. They're not going to make that mistake again. And for me, it's like, if the team fail, I'm not doing my job properly. I'm not giving them the resources. It's not their fault. Everyone makes mistakes. So I really do look at that as like, I've failed or my management have failed. What can we do to make sure that member of staff is just amazing, and can exceed in their role? If we could give them the resources, the time, the training, if there's a mistake, like we learn from it and implement that process, that mistake doesn't happen with anyone else ever again. You're really learning all the time from every failure. And that takes time, especially like the first 3-4 years. You're trying to grow. You take everything personally, because it's your baby, and it's only now that you can really, like, as I said, I use the analogy of the failure of like 300 quid, or we've had to refund someone £1,000. And my team would be annoyed. And I'm like, that's the best training money we've just spent, because we know we've just trained the whole team over that mistake, that it will never happen again. I think that's super powerful now.
Yeah, I agree. And the cost of recruiting and training is pretty astronomical from an operational perspective. But, I from one CEO actually mentioned, what happens if you train them and they leave? And the CEO responds, and well, what happens if you don't train them and they stay? Right. And so creating the culture is very important. I always say there's 3 types of employees in the workforce. There's the engaged employee, right? They're constantly engaged. They're doing their work. They're always there. They're going to get everything done. There's the RIP employee, the retired in place, right? They kind of come, they do the bare minimum, they just get by. But then the ones that I have difficulty with are the cave employees. They are constantly against virtually everything, right? The food sucks, the drive sucks, the hours suck, the pay sucks. Like they don't like anything. I don't mind RIP employees because I can get you engaged. I can get you, I can become an engaged employee. But a cave employee is very difficult. And what happens is those are the ones that are training your new employees. So they tend to erode that culture, and so it's very mindful to build up a team, but it's also very expensive. Like you said, Toby, when you lose a key stakeholder and then they're gone and now you're like, well, got to recruit and find somebody else.
Yeah. And I love I'm going to use that terminology. I have a slightly different one, which is, in every business, I see staff on like a scale of 1 to 10. And I see like your 1, 2, 3s are the people that don't want to be there. You don't want them there. They're not good at their job. You can sit down, have a conversation. They'll be happier if they leave and do something they want to do. You've got your 8s, 9s, and 10s, and this is what every business wants, and they are your superstars. They're in the culture. They're in it for the long term. And then you have this middle ground of I call them the 5, 6, 7s. And, you like them. The team might be friendly with them, but they're not good at their job. You want to get rid of them. It's a bit awkward. No one wants to have that conversation. But you have to have that conversation, because if you don't, the 8s, 9s, and 10s will leave because of the 5, 6, 7s. So I think it's really, really important, to make sure your company has 8, 9s, and 10s. And it takes a long time. I say you have to kiss a few frogs before you find your prince.
Yes, you do.
And it takes time to find talented people. And only now I'm like, hire slow, fire fast.
Yes.
If the management are talking about the same issue with the same member of staff, they've got to go, and then hire slowly to make sure you get the right person. Otherwise, if you don't get rid of them quickly, your 8s, 9s, and 10s who work really hard and are picking up all the slack, they get frustrated, they get annoyed, and then they leave because of those members of staff. So it's a culture, it's a challenge. There's no instruction manual for a leader, for an entrepreneur. You've got to work it out, and you've got to, when you have that scenario, you learn from it. And now it's like, okay, if there's a problem, you got to deal with it, because your superstars won't like it. And there's a risk they leave if you don't deal with the issue,
I agree. And there's nothing more rewarding than seeing one of your staff members propel in their professional journey. Seeing some of my staff members go into nursing school and helping them through that program and watching them go through the scholarship applications and things of that nature, and then becoming an RN eventually, those were very rewarding. However, with that said, there's nothing that will kill your spirit more than having to lay off a staff member because you weren't successful, or your business. Because again, as an entrepreneur, you own this, right? And I take pride. I'm in business development. I take pride in what I do in the healthcare industry, and my job is to help make a large sum of revenue for our institution. And so when I hear about layoffs, I take that personally as well. I'm like, man, I didn't do my job well enough to maintain what we have. And then sometimes you begin to look around the board, because to your point, Toby, you have to start to do layoffs, and it tends to be the high performers you tend to see go, because it's usually those high performers are the ones that come in early too, right? They have they're maybe sometimes they have the blinders on because they're coming into the new, they have a lot of innovative ideas and they want to do a lot of great things. And then you have, like you mentioned, those 1, 2s, and 3s, the 4, 5s, and 6s. They just kind of drag on that culture, and it really stifles innovation and growth. Now, one other thing I would encourage leaders to do is don't pass the trash. And what I mean by that is if you're going to let someone go, one, make sure to give them a good exit interview, give them some really good insights and things of how they can continue to improve, but then don't go get a referral from a company and just talk about how phenomenal they were and gloss over those areas of concerns. Be honest about it, and also be honest about your feedback, because that's the only way individuals are going to continue to grow and learn professionally. If we keep cooking cutter into these, basically compliments versus actual structural feedback, we're not going to learn. We're going to continue to be stagnant in our growth, and innovation will stop. Right. And I would encourage you to just provide feedback, do it in a calm and nice way. These are also individuals' lives, no matter how bad they were at your workplace, right? They still have a family to go home to. So it's important to provide feedback, but also not pass the trash around. Make sure if somebody calls for a referral, you're honest about that feedback, because that's another small business or entrepreneur that's going to go ahead and bring that staff member on, and they will deal with the same exact headaches you did, because maybe you did not provide them any insight. Now, with that said, with your valuable expertise, and you've been doing it for some time, what advice and tips would you give listeners who are aspiring entrepreneurs or looking to start their own venture?
I always say, think big. Think big, and big things will happen. If you think small things, have a belief, and you have something that you've really created that you believe in, go with it and think big. If you want to be a 10 million pound company, you're more likely to get to that than if you say, I'm going to, be a 1 million pound company. If you think small, you'll do small things. Think big, you'll do big things. And I say that to a lot of young entrepreneurs. They're like, oh, I go, how much do you want to make a year? And they're like, 100,000. And I was like, but why? Where have you plucked that figure from? I was like, why don't you want to earn 500,000? Because if you think that you want to earn 500,000, you're much more likely to get closest to it. You might earn 300,000. So I always say, think big, follow your dream. People will bring you down, and like accountants and finance people, a lot of business owners will go to their accountant and ask for advice. And I say, why? Your accountant isn't an entrepreneur. They know their figures. They know how to plan money. Entrepreneurs should speak to other entrepreneurs. The reason for your channel, entrepreneurs should hear it from other entrepreneurs, because we're all in the same boat. It's a lonely place. You can't go and ask your wife, oh, what should I do about this? They're not entrepreneurs, and there's so many, our minds work differently. We're all a bit crazy, in my opinion, but our minds work different. And I think the best way to grow and to learn is to speak to other fellow entrepreneurs who have been there, done it, got the metaphorical t-shirt. And that's something I do now. I listen to podcasts, YouTube of different entrepreneurs to see what their experiences are. Because if you can pick up little nuggets of knowledge and implement that into your business, it can just explode the growth of your business. We don't know everything. I think the best ideas for me come from the team. And they ask me, what do you think about it? And I'm like, well, what do you think? Or speak to the rest of the team. What do they think? Because the best ideas, and I tell my team every week, like, any idea, however stupid you may think it is, let me know your idea, because the best ideas for this business has come from the team and other entrepreneurs that have been there, done it. And I pick up little nuggets all the time to implement and go, oh, why didn't we do that? Let's do it tomorrow. It's done. And you might get 5-10% growth from that little bit that you've heard and gone, I'm going to do that. That's going to change things. So that's not one thing, but a few things I would definitely encourage entrepreneurs to do, and just follow your dream, and let people put you down. My parents, if we've got time, thought I was bonkers buying 200 pairs of headphones. They always used to moan how many wires and cables I had in my room, in the garage. They're like, why do you need so many cables? Why do you need so many headphones? And it's like now, 10 years later, that they come in and visit me, and they're like, oh, we can see why you wanted so many cables. You've got a lot of headphones to charge.
That's great. And again, folks, it is a lonely ride, entrepreneurship. And so get out there and network with folks, talk with people, feel comfortable sharing your mental health state as well. Because I don't think you'll be surprised about how many people are actually going through similar things throughout life, whether they're an entrepreneur or an executive or doesn't matter. Everybody starts somewhere. In fact, Red Hot Cheetos, right, at Frito-Lay was created by one of their janitors, and so it's important to remember. Yeah, and entrepreneurship happens even in the corporate setting. So go ahead and look out now. Toby, for the folks that are interested in the audience that want to learn more about you, and maybe they're out in the UK and they're interested in your service, how can they contact you? What is your webpage? And then maybe how can they find you on social media?
Webpage, social media, search at The Silent Disco Company. You'll see all of our brands. If you want to see sort of my journey and different stuff that we do with property and buying businesses, I can also be found at the eventrepreneur. At the eventrepreneur. Get in touch with us. We do stuff in the US. We do stuff in Dubai, all over. So if you're interested, check out the channel, check out our social media, and we'll be glad to have you on the ride.
I love it. And folks, if you forget all of that information, this is a great time to plug the newsletter, the Shades of Entrepreneurship newsletter that you can subscribe to by visiting theshadesofE.com. You can also follow us on the social sites. We have Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and LinkedIn at The Shades of E. And you can watch this episode streaming on YouTube at The Shades of E as well. Lastly, if you wouldn't so mind do so, become one of the patrons of The Shades of Entrepreneurship for as little as $5 a month. You can help support the podcast, which again brings you all these phenomenal guests, great insights, and you can get a free copy of my book, The Starting Line, which is basically a quick synopsis of how do you start a business here within the Oregon area. It also provides you with a mind mapping exercise that's actually put on by IDEO. So thank you to the IDEO team for allowing me to use that. Again, there is actually no value in my book. It's just a lot of my thoughts. So, but hey, I do appreciate all your support. Toby, again, thank you so much for joining us. Is there any last words you'd like to say to the guests or like to say to the audience?
Thank you for watching. Follow us. Watch our journey, day in the life of an eventrepreneur. And thank you for having me on the channel. Really appreciate your time.
No, I appreciate it. In fact, I will be out in Greece here in the next month at some time. So if you service Greece, let me know. Maybe I'll make you jump on a boat and head over to Crete, the island of Crete, and drop off one of these little silent things. All right, folks. Again, thank you again so much for listening to The Shades of Entrepreneurship. Please follow us at The Shades of E. Thank you and have a great night.
Thank you for tuning in to The Shades of Entrepreneurship. For more information, please follow The Shades of E on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or visit theshadesofE.com.